Today I spoke with the Oxford professor whose bestseller, The God Delusion, is now in paperback. Please welcome Richard Dawkins. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. I don't have to tell you how big a fan I am, and I'm glad that your book is now in paperback. It will be accessible to that many more people. They can pick it up at the airport before their flight is canceled. What I first want to ask you is, why is this book such a phenomenon? It was so much more than just a bestseller. It really changed the way people talked about this subject all over the world. Why this book and why now?
Well, it has sold more than 1.5 million copies now, and similar sales, I think, have been posted for Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens. So it looks as though there is something going on. I think people are getting a bit fed up with other people thrusting their imaginary friends down their throat. I think especially in America, there has been a tendency for God to rule the roost in a way that I think people are rightly getting fed up with. And when a group of books come along and challenge that, people warm to it.
I notice you call it imaginary friend, a phrase I enjoy myself because it gets at what this is. And yet,
yeah, did you coin it? Who invented that phrase? Did you coin it?
I used to use it in my stand-up act, and I noticed.
Maybe it's your phrase. It's very good, anyway.
Well, but believe me, I've stolen many of yours, so I think we're even. But I think people would be interested to find out that in the book you establish a scale of 1 to 7 of atheism. 1 being someone who is utterly certain there is a God, and 7 being someone who is utterly certain there is not. But you yourself say you're only a 6. Can you tell us why?
I think any scientist would be unwise to commit himself to saying there definitely is not anything. I mean, I can't definitely commit myself to saying there are no fairies. I'm pretty sure there are no fairies, but I think it would be unscientific to do what the extreme religious people do and say, I know there is a God. I can't say, I know there is no God. I can't say, I know there are no pink unicorns. So a 6, maybe 6.9 is reasonable.
Right. And one reason I think yourself and so many others are beginning to speak out against organized religion is because it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. There's a talking snake in the Garden of Eden, and people fly up to heaven bodily. It's just ridiculous. So my question is, how do you explain bright people, and there are many, come on, we have to admit this. I talked to your friend, the scientist Francis Collins, discovered the human genome. How does a man go to a lab all day and then at home go home and believe in the talking snake? How do you explain that phenomenon?
Well, Francis Collins didn't discover the human genome. He was the head of the worldwide operation that discovered it. So he was an administrator. He's a very good scientist too, but don't say he was the one who discovered the human genome. It was a team effort, and he was the administrator who organized it.
But he's a bright guy.
Well, yeah, I guess he's a bright guy, but I mean...
all right, take another example. Tony Blair, your former prime minister, just converted to Catholicism.
He's not a bright guy. Yeah, he's not a bright guy. Francis Collins is a much brighter guy than Tony Blair, I give him that. But when you meet a scientist who claims to be religious, if you say, do you really believe in the talking snake, most of them will say no. Most of them will be religious in a much more nebulous sense than that. They'll vaguely believe in some sort of maybe spirit that motivates the universe or something like that. They won't really believe in all the details in the book of Genesis. And I must say, I don't think Francis Collins believes that. I think you've got to give him credit for maybe he believes in some kind of God. Maybe he even believes in Jesus Christ. But I don't think you'll find he believes in the talking snake.
I interviewed him, and he absolutely does.
He does?
But that's okay.
Well, look, in that case, he goes right down in my estimation. He's not a bright guy.
Okay. That's fair, one or the other. Now, you write in your book, if this book works as I intend, readers who open it will be atheists when they put it down. How is that going for you, the rate of conversion? Do you have people come up to you and say, you know, I used to be a believer, and I read your book, and now I'm not?
We have a section on my website, richarddawkins.net, called Convert's Corner. And you can go and visit that and read all the testimonies of people who have been converted. However, I think they're probably less numerous than people who maybe were sort of vaguely sitting on the fence and who didn't feel very strongly about it one way or the other. But now that they've been asked to think about it, now they've read a book that makes them think about it, they realise that they've been atheists all along. They just didn't know it. They didn't know it was okay to be an atheist, perhaps. They thought somehow it wasn't respectable, or they just didn't give it much thought. I think there's a much larger group of people in that category than people who were fervently religious, who've now changed their minds.
And do you think there's any chance that when the final hour comes for you, when you're on your deathbed, you might have a second thought and suddenly get cold feet?
I tell you what, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to have a tape recorder switched on, because time and again, people like me are the victims of malicious stories after they're dead, people saying they had a deathbed conversion when they didn't. There's a story that even Darwin had a deathbed conversion, which is a complete lie, but it's widely believed by creationists, and it happens again and again and again. So I'm going to have witnesses, and I'm going to have a tape recorder switched on.
Okay. Richard Dawkins, thank you so much for making time for us. The God Delusion, here's my copy. It's out in paperback now, and hopefully someday it'll be by the bed in every hotel in America. Richard Dawkins, thank you very much.